Hey everybody, I just want to do a quick video. I thought I'd share Cabiria here. I'm out on my patio and she is a little ball of energy. So she doesn't sit on the lap much. She likes to run around and I just wanted to introduce her, and I knew that I had to hold her in the beginning if I wanted to show you my little orange power over there. She reminds me of Apollo. But just to do some quick video. So I've been saying I've been wanting to do a video on the unhealthy type 4, and I feel like today is a good day to do it. It's actually very overcast. I think it's nice weather. I like this weather, kind of melancholic, and it's kind of the mood I've been in. If you saw my last few videos, you see I had 2 of my cats die. Had them for almost 18 years, so I'm in kind of, a lull, going through a grieving period. I have, 2 new kittens, but they don't, I'm still getting to know them. I've only had them a week, so they're little fiery balls of energy. But also I had somebody who I know through other people, it's sort of a distant relation, had her sister die, and she was only 29. So it's actually interesting that it's very sad, but I did not know her personally, but I could, I've been dealing with my own grief, but it just seems to have been a sad sort of month, and I've been thinking about how is it that sometimes I feel more, I will say, comfortable when I'm dealing with a kind of sadness. To counteract that, just to give fellow 4s example of what I've been doing, I've actually trying to be productive, purge things from my house, declutter, organize stuff, sort of like taking on those type 1 tendencies, and it makes me feel better. But I find this might be my favorite weather. I mean, any weather that's too much over so many days isn't any good, but this melancholic kind of gray press in the air, and it's got a cool breeze. I really enjoy this weather, and I got the gray on. And so also, one last thing, I wanted to mention that I am currently proofing my Sounds with Song novel. That is my 2nd novel in my selfhood trilogy. This is the longest of the books. This is over 130,000 words. It's about 134-ish thousand words. I'm going through cleaning little parts up. I wrote it in 2007, but it really gives a good example of a lot of not just childhood consciousness, but memory, and also just that feeling of abandonment. And I'm going to be releasing that later in the new year, very early in the new year, hopefully in January. So once I get it cleaned up, that will be available for your purchase. I do encourage those who do read my work to read this book. If you've not read the other 2 selfhood books and you had to pick one, I would pick this one, number 2. I'm going to do a separate video on this once I release it, but just wanted to give that heads up. So what is it about the unhealthy type 4? Type 4 can be a real pain in the ass, can't they? When they're not pleasant to be around. And I say one myself as one. I am a 4 myself. And how is it that I know I'm a 4? I've said this before, it's that feeling of defectiveness. It's that feeling of separateness, feeling different. But also I want to stress, because there's a lot of confusion between people knowing whether they're deciding whether they're a 4-wing 5 or a 5-wing 4. Does the emotion hit you instantly? And with me, that's what hits me. So when my cats were dying, I could not contain that emotion. I had it flooding out of me. I'm almost like a type 2 in that moment. Because I'm stressed, I reach for other people and I'll hug them, and I don't think a 5 would do this so much. Also, when I do construct my narratives and I create, what is it that moves me instantly, or the first moment, or the first impetus, I would say, is emotion, is that drive, that feeling. whereas maybe 5s would have an idea. And yes, I have the 5 wing, so that goes there very quickly, but what ultimately pushes me is that emotion. So that's something really to consider. That's how you know whether you're one. And you know, I've read the 5 wing 4 and I say, you know, there's a lot of me there, but unfortunately with the 5 I don't stay there. Also, notice your wings. Do you feel a 3 pole? I feel a very strong 3 pole, and I've said before that I feel like my worst qualities and my negative traits, my narcissism that I have, stems from my 3 wing. And also though, the 3 wings also propels though my motivation. It makes me have a drive. It makes me want to contribute and accomplish. I'll talk more about this in time, but as for the unhealthy type 4, you know, a few months ago I got this email from this ex-writer friend of mine. I say he's an ex-writer friend because he's a very, very unhealthy 4 wing 5 who is a narcissist. He has, I believe, NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. I've known quite a number of people, artists who've had this, and I thought it was just, they're just moody, but no. So I get this email from him, and I lost touch with him 10 years ago. When he sent me this email, it wasn't even directed to me personally. It was a mass email. And he was sending it out to who knows how many people. Basically just, he was asking for money. Oh, I've run out of money. I need money to renew my license and registration. I need to renew my AAA membership. I need money so I can go on these little conventions. And I was just appalled. I was just disgusted by this. And I was like, I work my full-time job. Why should I or anyone give you money? I wanted to just like write him back and be like, oh, I think you could get $800 if you actually, maybe if you did some transcription work. But his idea in his head, in the sense of entitlement, was, I need this money so I can pursue my art. Oh, so I have the time. Hello, asshole. Who doesn't want that? You like, he's the only artist who has to sacrifice time and work a job? So when I saw that, I became very angry. And I always, you know, he always believed that he was above having to work, that it's somehow beneath him. And yes, if you're an artist with great talent, you should be able to live on your talent. You shouldn't have to work a, you know, everyday job. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. And to just beg people, ask people for money, I just found this just abhorrent. And I work hard for my money. I had my 2 cats who died. My vet bills were skyrocketing. I had to pay those off. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't just come easy. I'm not just gonna give him money. And that he would even ask. And that he would contact me without even, it wasn't even personally directed to me. Nothing, hey Jessica, how have you been? What have you been up to? Nothing. It was just, give me money. I couldn't believe this. But he's done it before. And he is a very unhealthy 4 wing 5. I think he also blames everyone else for his problems. And you get in some shady areas, I think, when you come across someone with narcissistic personality disorder and trying to assume what their Enneagram number is. The reason you can become sort of jaded is because the Enneagram implies that this person is capable of integration, but if you have narcissism and you are a full-blown narcissist, have narcissistic personality disorder, there is no integration. That is who you are. Okay, you just have no empathy and you're selfish and you think only of your own interests and nobody else. So that bugged me, and that was sort of the impetus behind wanting maybe to do a little bit of this video. And I don't want to do a video about just trash talking someone, so I am going to talk about some of my own traits. And when you look at the video I did about my disintegration to 2, I have a video called, oh look, here she is, Cabiria. Here she's a girl. She's a girl. Look at this girl. She's so cute. In that video about 4's disintegration to 2, I give some examples. So if you want to know more, I recommend you watch that. But just to highlight, what I was doing was I was contacting people from my past, old coworkers, people I hadn't spoken to in a long time. I wasn't asking them for money, but I was kind of just being friendly and trying to reconnect, mostly because I was seeking a kind of validation. So when I found myself going to two, I find myself much more people-pleasing, much more fishing for compliments. I'm really in search of validation. And in that time in my life, I had another person who was a narcissist in my life, who was actually engaging in kind of gaslighting techniques, and I'm going to eventually do a video on that. But I was really torn down because this person in the beginning had put me on this pedestal. He, as narcissists do, he did the whole love bombing in the sense that he presented to me an image of myself I liked, then he took it away. He became very distant, very apathetic, very cold, and I'm going to have to do, this is an entirely separate video, but it threw me to two, because now I was seeking validation from other people, other sources, rather than myself. As opposed to when I'm integrated to one, I am much more self-contained. I am much more secure in who I am, and I don't need your approval. I don't need you to tell me I'm good or I'm this or that, because I know. And that's a much more comfortable place to be. I have been around other unhealthy fours, and I do want to let anyone know who isn't a four and you're watching this, or even if you are, I want you to know I understand that fours can be extremely insufferable to be around when they're unhealthy. It's just, everything is just, I can be somewhat that way sometimes, but one of the things I do have is I do have a sense of humor, and I have a really close friend who's an 8, and it's funny because when I do get really depressed and I'll just do the whole pity party, and he starts laughing at me. He'll just laugh, and it sounds cold, like he's just making fun of me, but he's actually, what he's doing, he's laughing at me because he's seeing the absurdity in what I'm saying, and he's just sort of like, why are you, this is ridiculous. And actually that's what gets me out of it, is to kind of get me, oh, here we go, another kitten, is to get me to laugh in the moment. I mean, it doesn't always work with everyone. I will say it wouldn't work with most people. It just happens to work with him, because he is someone who understands me and my talents and that sort of thing. Like, if I was confiding all this emotion to someone and they started laughing, that probably wouldn't go over well with most people. But generally, I will say that I don't confide my emotion with just anyone. It's just with those I feel who understand me, or who I feel will empathize. So it is kind of interesting that his reaction is very often the thing I need to pull me out of this. Now, as I said, with going to one, I feel more principled and focused, and right now, after my cat's death, both of them, I have been grieving, but grief is not something that just remedies, there's another kitten, just remedies overnight. It's a process, and, oh, there she is, two babies. I've had to go about it in a way where I'm trying to sort of get things done, and it's almost like forcing myself to go to one. I'm cleaning and purging things and decluttering, and it's making me feel better because it's making the environment aesthetically more pleasing. So those are just some of the things that I've been doing, or that I have done when I feel myself in that low. Ultimately, though, I've realized that when that really intense sadness hits, there's nothing I can do but to feel it. I have to also admit that days like today, with this weather that's cloudy, a little rainy, a little damp, for me, I find more comfort in it than just a sunny day, or sunny skies, or blue skies. Not that I don't appreciate a sunny day, I just feel like sometimes a day like that, that's sunny and positive, can almost make you feel pressured to feel happy. And what if you don't? If you ever read that book, Girl Interrupted, Susanna Kaysen, she talks about in that book, she speaks about the suicide rates. Actually, the most of them occur in the spring, not in the winter. And that's because by the time spring hits, many assume that their feelings will heal themselves, they'll feel better, they'll just get through the winter. If I get to spring, I'll feel better. And then when they come to spring, they realize, oh, I still feel terrible. And sometimes I feel like that can be the case with sunny days or events or situations where I'm expected to feel happy. So parties and certain gatherings, and when you're forced into a sort of happiness and you see everyone else feels this way and yet you don't, that can exacerbate your feelings of separation and difference, versus when others are going through a sort of sadness themselves and they're dealing with their emotional pangs. And it's not that you like to see them suffering, it's just I feel that fours can bond with them in that sadness and in that suffering. And rather than push it away, we gravitate towards it. So it can actually be sort of a commiseration. And other than that, the unhealthy four, when you're stuck at 2 as a 4, it's very unpleasant because constantly seeking validation. It's a need for compliments and poor boundaries and people pleasing. And none of this really feels like who you are. You have more of a desire to fit in because you want to be around people. You want you don't want to be abandoned. When you integrate to 1, none of those are the issue. Now you're comfortable with yourself. You're focused on your goals. You're focused on your principles. And you're good with who you are. You don't need them to tell you it's okay to be who you are. So those are just some of my thoughts. I will be doing another video when I release that novel of mine, my second novel, my selfhood trilogy. Check out my book page. When I do release it, I'm going to do a video on that, and I'm going to talk more in depth. Deals a lot with the feelings of isolation and abandonment, and where I do believe how I developed into my personality being the way it is, feeling separate. When you're young and you undergo this kind of trauma or suffering, and then you're thrust into relationships with other kids who don't endure that, you can also then, there's another feeling of difference there. So this book really goes into the really deep consciousness of a child, but it's told from the point of view of a memory. As I said, I will go into more depth once I release that book on Amazon, and I will share that with you. Other than that, this is about all I have to say for right now. I hope everyone has a pleasant New Year. But I'm looking forward to making more videos in the future. Enneagram and personal and writing. And here's Cabiria after Fellini, the Knights of Cabiria, the Knights of Cabiria, Giulietta Messina. That's this girl. She's very fiery, just like that character. Anyway, I thank everyone for listening, and if you would like to subscribe and follow, like this video, whatever, that's what everyone says, isn't it? It's like so predictable, but please do. I will have more in touch, and I hope to reach anyone. And if you would like to read anything of mine, not just check out my page, but if you'd like to read anything I haven't released, just send me a message through Facebook, or leave me a comment or whatever. So I hope to hear from you, and I will be in touch. So thank you for listening, and I hope everyone has a pleasant rest of the day, as well as New Year. We will be going into a new decade, and things will be, I believe, more enhanced, and we will see what happens. But thank you. I will be in touch.